Hi, my name is Petra. How are you going? Welcome to another episode of Vintage Knitting. I believe this is episode number 4. So if you're a new viewer, welcome. Really looking forward to meeting you. So you might hear a few footsteps every now and then. My pets are around. And if you are here again, thanks for coming back. Really looking forward to meeting you all. And so I really enjoy knitting vintage garments, primarily between 1930s through to the end of 1950s, and I do like 1980s as well, just something different. And this week, normally I would want to start with finished objects, but I do not have any finished objects. But what I am wearing is something I finished a while ago. This one, I don't have an actual pattern name unfortunately, but this one is from the 1950s. And oh, this is testing my memory. I knit it about 8 years ago. Yes, the yarn I used was Madeline Tosh, and it was a single, but I can't recall the actual yarn name. But it was a hand dyed variegated yarn. Yeah. Alright, I went and just grabbed a bed for my dog. Otherwise he's going to be going back and forth all the time. So yes, so I don't have any finished objects this week, but I do have quite a few things that are works in progress, and I just haven't been able to stick to any one project. But I have been making progress on everything slowly. And actually, I say slowly, it has been so busy for me recently. My business has grown stupendously in the last few months, and so I'm having to hire a new staff member, and just I've been working late. I don't really like working late because I've got young kids as well. So I kind of feel like I haven't been able to make the progress on the knitting that I would have liked to. But I don't really think I made progress on much of anything other than work. And I don't even know if I made progress on work either. But that's alright. We have at least something different from what I showed you last time. Alright, so what I'm going to do, I'll just show you my works in progress. And I'm not going to go too much into detail in the yarn and all of that because I showed it to you last time and I thought we could cut a little bit of time out. So this particular project, using my Amerisu yarn from Japan, has got a little bit further. So it has eyelets on the side, up the sides, and then a lace panel down the middle. Now I've finished the lace now, so I'm about to start binding off in the middle for the neck shortly. And it looks a bit extra short because you can see I've got a provisional cast on down the bottom, and my intention is to pull this out and then knit the ribbing down once I have finished the back and the sleeves, because I've only got 3 balls of yarn. So I don't want scraps. I just want to knit it down until it's finished at the end. I might even cast the sleeves on provisionally as well, but it's probably not as necessary for the sleeves. So yeah, made quite a bit of progress with that. I did have to undo it a few times. Somehow I just ended up with the wrong number of stitches in this top lace panel, and I had to undo it. And then when I did it the second time, I had some, I really don't know what happened, but I ended up having some excess yarn on the back that formed a bit of a loop. So I had to undo it a couple of times. Oh, actually there was one more thing that I was going to say with this. It's actually, this pattern's actually really bugging me because it's not, I realised actually after knitting it, the pattern itself is not symmetrical. So on this side, you have like a kind of a pearl ridge here, and then the eyelets. And then on the other side, the eyelets kind of disappear for a start, but the pearl ridge is also on the same side, so it's not mirrored. So that's your left, right? It's my right, your left. So yeah, it's on the same side. It's not actually mirrored, and that's been driving me a little bit batty, and it annoys me a bit that the eyelets are different sizes, and it's just because of the way they have you do the eyelets. One's going straight knit from purl, the other one is you're already on a knit stitch and then you're doing a yarn over and then you're doing a purl, and it makes the eyelets look different. So yeah, if I was to do this again, I would make them look the same on both sides. Alright, so that's one work in progress, coming along alright. Now something I just picked up again recently, because Colourmart, they do competitions every twice a year. And look, I'm not really trying to compete or anything, but it's just basically a knit along. And I like knitting along with other people at the same time. So this particular project was Colourmart yarn, and so I decided to hold off on working on it again until the time that that competition was starting. So last week, well, I'd already knit the sleeves, which I showed you some time ago. I'm not going to pull them out again. And last week I had up to about here. So last weekend. And so since the last weekend, I cannot believe how quickly it is to knit in the round, because I don't typically knit things in the round. Being that I like knitting vintage patterns, they're almost always knit flat. But knitting in the round, I've managed to knit from there to here in 4-ply in 1 week, which I just find that amazing. That's unheard of for me. Now I have been decreasing along the way, because this particular pattern is going to be a like a deep V-neck pattern, and it has buttons right at the bottom and then a V-neck all the way to the shoulders. And so I've been decreasing along this central point, and I'm doing something a little bit, this is a really unusual construction for me, and in fact it's not the construction that was recommended in the pattern, but I re-gauged the pattern anyway because the original pattern was DK weight. And what I had intended to do was, I had decided I wanted to knit in the round. And when I first started, I wanted to try a technique that I read about in a Vintage Fair Isle book. And it was talking about every few rows, you actually cut the yarn and tie a knot. And I don't know if you can see that, it's really messy at the bottom because I was tying these knots. Now I actually hated that technique because, and I mentioned this last week I think, or last month, when you tie the knot, or when you come around again after having cut below, the stitches above where you've cut are really loose, and until you actually tie the knot, it doesn't tighten up the stitch, and it's really hard to know if you've dropped a stitch. So I really didn't like that, and I decided I would do a steek instead. Now, I've never ever done a steek. I just erred on the side of caution, and I added way more steek stitches than I needed. So I think I've got something like 9 excess stitches in the middle. And I decided that I would continue, because I was really enjoying knitting in the round just by how much I did. So I decided I would keep knitting in the round and also steek the armholes. So I cast off some stitches at the underarms, and then I've been doing the decreases up here. But I've also got another 8 stitches in here that is going to be a steek there as well. Now, one thing I haven't figured out yet is how to steek something that is entirely knit in the round. Because all of when I've looked into how to do the steeking, is talking about using your sewing machine to like sew down both sides of where you're going to cut. And I don't know how to sew. I am the world's worst sewer, and I do actually have a sewing machine, but I haven't used it. I haven't serviced it. I think at yarn baths or thrift baths. So I might need to just practice this. I'll definitely need to practice this with a swatch before doing it. But I'm not sure how to sew on something when it's already in the round, because it might sew through 2 layers. I don't know. So partly I thought, well, if I have so many steek stitches, then it's likely that things will go okay if I don't sew them down first. I'm not sure because I've never steeked. This might be an absolute disaster. So what I'm thinking of doing is, and this might just be completely crazy, but I'm thinking of making up some starch solution, which is basically I'm going to boil some flour and water together to make a starch. I'm going to starch the front area where it's going to be steeked, and then I'm going to cut through that steek, and then I'm going to have it open, and then I'm going to sew down the sides where that are open, and then go from there. Because yes, unless other people have, I'm sure there must be some sewing machines that actually sew in the other direction that you can put a tube on, but I don't know. I'm not experienced with these things. But yeah, this is like going around in circles. Has gone so quickly. I'm really impressed by how quickly that goes. And so I'm wondering if this all goes well, I might even consider knitting some other vintage garments in the round, just changing them to the round. And something I haven't really experienced yet though is fitting the armholes in when it's already in a tube. Yeah, I'm not really sure on that, but we'll get to that when we get there. Alrighty, so the third thing I've been working on, and I'm kind of really over this yarn to be honest, is this crazy yarn project I told you about. So I showed you this yarn a few times. When I saw it in the shop, I just thought, oh, I want to see how this knits up. Well, I've seen how it knits up now and I'm kind of over it. Because the thing is, I'm not really sure how likely I am to wear a garment made from crazy yarn. But I guess curiosity got the better of me. But I have now knit the back and the fronts. So this is the back. I've got the fronts as well, but I'm not going to bother taking them out of the bag. I've got a little bit of pooling here. I've got kind of a bit too much pink here and a bit too much yellow over there. But for the most part, it's not too bad. And I'm now working on sleeves. I'm doing these with straight needles and my Shetland knitting belt. I'm not sure exactly how long these sleeves are going to be. I was actually hoping to make it shortish sleeves, but I don't think I've cast on enough stitches. So because when I just test what it looks like on my arm, I realise it's probably, yeah, I can probably get it to just below my elbow comfortably, but I don't think it's going to go comfortably around my bicep. So I think that's about as short as I can do. So maybe I'll make it slightly longer just for comfort. I don't know, but essentially it'll end up stopping about here. And so what I'm just going to do is increase until I reach where I got up to in the pattern. Well, essentially the pattern, it's a really simple pattern. It's just basically increase until it gets to a certain number of stitches. Because it's just garter with 2 knit rows between 4 stitches of garter. Sorry, 2 knit stitches between 4 stitches of garter. It's really easy to increase to any size that I want. So I'll just measure my shoulder area and decide at what point it's wide enough and then knit straight from there. And then it's just a case of shaping for the shoulders. So that's really easy to customize that one. And so my plan then is it will be, so this is back piece like I showed you. The front pieces actually don't have any buttons, they just sit open, and then obviously the sleeves will be set in sleeves. And then my last plan for it is to knit a ginormous bow. I don't know what it is, this yarn just makes me feel frivolous, and so I'm going to knit a ginormous bow and attach it to the front, and hopefully it doesn't weigh it all down. And that will be the end of that. But if the colour really bothers me when it's when I've got all the pieces and I don't like the pooling or anything like that, I might consider over dyeing it before I put it together. Just, it was fun looking at the yarn, and it's been fun knitting it, but I don't know if I want to wear it. I mean, it's just a bit loud. I don't know that I want to attract that much attention to myself. So yes, I might over dye it pink, perhaps, because I think pink can go over the yellow okay, and there's already quite a bit of it pink, so it might just end up being over dyed pink. And in which case, if I over dye it pink, because it is variegated, the parts that are already dark will stay dark, and it'll still stay variegated, but a bit more even. And you might say, well, what was the point of having the crazy yarn in the first place if you're just going to over dye it? Well, you know, it's kind of fun to try something new. That's my philosophy. Alrighty. Well, that's my 3 main works in progress, which we got through that kind of quickly. Did I say the yarns? I don't think I said the yarns. So that particular crazy one, I stumble on it every single time because it's not really written anywhere on that cone. So we'll just get that from the show notes. And the one that I'm going round and around, that's a colour mart yarn. It's lamb's wool and it's heavy lace weight. And I have two strands of the heavy lace weight lamb's wool with 1 strand of 65-35 cashmere silk cobweb I'm just trying to get rid of. And I'm basically trying to use it all up. It ends up with this kind of heathered look because it's mild, but then I like to over dye it afterwards to even out the colour. But in this case, it's going to be another experiment because the sleeves are red and the body is blue, and so I'm just going to over dye the whole lot purple. And again, some of my experiments might be a bit weird. I don't know. We'll find out if it works or not. Okay, well that's pretty much the. Oh no, I have one more work in progress. So my son has been asking me to knit something for him, and as it turns out, this one's now for my daughter. But what I thought I would do is knit him a spiral sock. So I've been looking into some 1940s sock patterns, and it's a 1940s pattern, but I have heard it being used in more recent times as well. But essentially there's a type of pattern called a spiral sock. And actually I think these were popular in the 80s. I recall wearing something like these. They were called scrunch socks from what I recall now. Wouldn't have been the 80s because I was born in the 80s, but so early 90s. We had these scrunch socks that we pushed down, and basically they were quite long, but then they scrunched. And I have a feeling these spiral socks are pretty similar. So my son I asked him to pick out some colours from my yarn, and he picked out, from my scraps he picked out this Wollmeise 4-ply. So I had some scraps in orange, and I had some scraps in this kind of blue, it's like blue and magenta. And I said that I would make up some spiral socks for him. I measured his foot, measured his ankle, cast on, he's only 9, so I cast on 60 stitches and started going around in a spiral. And when you knit it in a spiral, the whole purpose behind the spiral sock is that you don't need to knit a heel, because when you put your foot in it, the spiral actually unspirals when you get to the heel and fits snugly around the heel without needing to add a heel flap or anything like that. And I wanted to do that for children because children's feet are always growing. I'm constantly buying new shoes for the kids, and I didn't really want to spend lots of time knitting a sock just to have it not fit after a short period of time. So anyway, I cast on 60 stitches thinking that was the right size, and my plan was that when he grew out of it, my daughter could have it. She still wanted it. And but yeah, it came out like really narrow. And my son has these kind of big clod hoppers. In fact, he likes wearing some socks that I knit for myself. And looking at it, that is like, it looks almost baby sized. So, you might be wondering why I have two different colours and I changed the colour. And it's because when I saw how small this came out, my instinct was maybe we can squeeze it onto his foot. I mean, it does stretch, but no, it wasn't really going to happen. It's just too narrow. Maybe because I use 2.25mm needles. And I tried it on my daughter and it fits her perfectly. But then, being, you know, sibling rivalry and all that, my son was then really upset that I was using the yarn that he picked on a sock that could only fit his sister. That is not going to work out. So I changed to a totally different colour of yarn. This is still wool miser though. And so it's still exactly the same yarn, just a different colour. And I'm now creating these crazy socks because I have the first bit being the original stripes that my son wanted, and then the rest of the sock is going to be this wool miser. And I will match two exactly the same. And then I will proceed on making the sock for my son, but I'll add extra stitches. Maybe instead of 60, I'll do like a, I didn't think my son needed 72 stitch sock, but I don't know, is adding another 8 stitches even going to be enough? This just looks like a baby sock to me. So I might have to go up to a 72 stitch sock. We shall see. And yes, but basically because I stopped here, there's now enough yarn that I can still resume using that yarn for my son's sock. Otherwise, it won't be nice at home if I use the yarn my son picked for my daughter's sock. So that's coming along, that's been progressing. And actually, I had to have part of the reason why I cast this sock on in the first place was I had been trying to knit the sweaters using the knitting belt in the car, and like literally I'm knitting in the car with these things like sticking out of my stomach, and my husband has forbidden me from using these in the car. He said that if we have an accident, I am going to be a knitting skewer. So I had to try and tell him that these knitting needles, they're not that sharp, but no, he has worked on accident scenes in the past and he knows what they look like, and yeah, we won't go there, but he's banned me from using my knitting belt. So this one I'm just doing on a circular needle, 2.25 like I said. And these are fixed circular knit pro zings. Alright, I think that's pretty much all I can say about that. So, other than those works in progress, there was some other bits and bobs of news. Now, one thing not so happy though. I had a very unhappy time in the last month due to what I'm going to consider bullying. Now, I guess there's some ambiguity here, but I'm going to call it bullying because I've been a member of a group in Ravelry for quite some time. Probably about 8 or 9 years, but I've been quite active in the last 1 year. And it's I've been pretty upset about this, to be honest. So I sent a private message to someone who I got the feeling wasn't really keen on what I was posting, and I got some feedback that she thought that I was bossy and that I was rude and insensitive and not respectful and different, and that I posted too often, that when I did post, I posted differently from others, that I was like intrusive into other people's lives somehow. I'm not really sure how that is. But in any case, these are these types of things that she was saying. And then not only that, but it wasn't just her that felt like that, but it was the group, like the Ravelry group felt like that. And I must admit, I was taken aback. I was really upset because it's not nice feeling different. And well, the main thing is, it's not so much about being different. It wasn't nice for me thinking that somehow I'd hurt other people's feelings, that I imagined myself to be this ogre person that was bossy and intrusive and insensitive to others. Anyway, so I went through my post and had a look at what I was actually posting and checked, well, am I posting more often than others? Am I being like these things? And I actually couldn't really find any evidence of that. Now, it might be maybe at some point during the time that I've been in this group, I have written some things that were like questioning why someone had done something a particular way, or maybe I gave some unsolicited advice. These types of things can happen in forums, but you know, I was kind of still taken aback. I couldn't really find any evidence of these things because mostly what I had been posting was like encouraging comments to others about, yeah, your project's really great, I'm really enjoying it, that type of thing. Because really I was enjoying going into the group and seeing what everyone was posting, and I was really enjoying participating in knit-along type things because I just like knitting along with others. So yeah, I was really upset. The thought that I had upset a whole group of people, and so I started just checking in with others to see, well, is this really true? Have I done these things or not? And the feedback that I got from others in the group was no, I hadn't. And I checked how often I posted, and I hadn't posted more than other members. So I inquired back again with the administrators of the group to ask for more information, and I got banned from the Ravelry group. So I have been really upset about this, to be honest, because I love to join the Ravelry group and see what's going on, and now I can't. So I'm not in the Ravelry group anymore. I have since then joined some Facebook groups, but I still feel sad about what's happened in the Ravelry group. So I guess this is just look, I'm calling it bullying. If you have experienced the same thing as me, you've been, because actually I asked a couple of other people if they had been experienced this online, and one person told me that weekly she had been getting messages from other knitters saying that she was doing it wrong. And I'm flabbergasted because I'm sure I'm doing plenty of things wrong with my knitting, but it's my knitting. I'm allowed to do things wrong. So, I just find that appalling, to be honest, that we can be so opinionated about what is someone else's hobby. But yeah, I guess I want to just let you know that if you have also been bullied online in any forums, if it has anything to do with your hobbies, or if you've been left out of a social group for some reason, that I really empathise with how that might have felt for you, because I've experienced in the last month with the vintage knitting group, and it felt really, really sad. I think I'm kind of moved on now, but I still feel sad thinking about it. Yeah, anyway, so that's just another aside. On other notes, on good notes, I do have a couple of other things that I wanted to show you. So one is acquisitions. I do have a few acquisitions, although not entirely vintagey. We will see. And one is for my birthday. Did I show you this last time? I might have. Anyway, yes, I did. For my birthday last year, I got some yarn, which was from Knit Picks. It is called, I have forgotten. Highland. Yes, I think it's called Highland. I've got this in my notes as well. And I over-dyed it, and it's ended up slightly variegated. So I ended up deciding to try this thing that everyone's been talking about with mixing a mohair with a variegated yarn. And actually, I made a mistake online. I don't know how I did it, but I was intending for some orangey kind of mohair to go with this. And I went online and, oh, actually I mentioned this. Last time I actually saw this fantastic video online, picked some yarn, ended up with like the wrong color. I don't know what I did, but I just picked, I wasn't looking properly, and I picked this one, which is this beautiful purpley wine color, but it is not the right color at all. they do not match. So I was shocked when this arrived, and you know, it's a good $100 worth of yarn. So I was like, oh, wow, that's going to be another project. So that has gone aside, and I had to make another order of the same yarn, which is it's Silk Mohair by Along Avec Anna, and this one here is the Granat colorway. Oh, I don't have the colorway of this one, but I can include that in the show notes. Do I have it here? I lost the ball band. But essentially what I intended to get was this orangey one. And so it's the same yarn, different colour, and I'm going to pair it with this. So I think that's going to be nice. As it turns out, this is a bit more of like a caramel. And this is a little bit more yellow, I guess. Like a slightly cooler orangey shade because I added some blue to it. So when I dyed this, I mixed up some orange with some blue to make a bit of a brown and added a tiny spot of red. And some spots actually came out quite yellow. But, and then this is quite a warm caramelly colour. So I think I actually like the more caramelly colour better. So I'm hoping that it will impart a nice caramel tone to the whole project. And because this has a very different gauge to other vintage knitting projects, it's, I have my swatch here. Here it is. So this one actually knits up at, I didn't do a lot of rows, probably a bit lazy of me. It knits up at, was it, I think 19, yes, about 19 stitches per 4 inches and on a 4.5mm needle, which is completely different from other vintage patterns. But the pattern that I was planning to use this with actually used bulky wool. Even though it was a 1940s pattern, it used bulky wool, and it is 16 stitches per 4 inches in the pattern. So I'm actually having to re-gauge the pattern, but in the opposite direction. Normally, if I was going to use DK with mohair, I would be having to re-gauge the pattern to use fewer stitches, but I'm having to re-gauge it to use more stitches. And it's going to be fine because it's a repeating stitch pattern, and it'll be perfectly fine. So that's happening there. I'm really looking forward to casting this one on actually, because I see that using DK yarn is going to be a really quick knit. I've been using 4-ply for such a long time. So yes, in terms of other acquisitions, I do have an entire sweater's worth of this one as well. And for my birthday next year, but I've got it early, my mother and father-in-law went to New Zealand, and I asked them if they could please pick me up some possum yarn while they were there. They came back with 6 or 8 balls, I can't recall exactly, of this one here. It's called Brush Tail. They got this one in the South Island of New Zealand, around Queenstown. And it says Brush Tail Upcycled Possum Merino 8-ply. 50 grams is 200 meters. And made in New Zealand, 30% possum fur, 70% merino wool. Now, I'll just take this off. Something that I notice about this particular one is it's quite heathered. Let me just see if I can bring that close to you. There we go. It's quite a heathered yarn. I'm thinking this is going to knit up beautifully, and so I'm planning to re-gauge a vintage pattern to use this one as well. I'm really looking forward to that, but I've got too many things on the needles at the moment. I don't want to cast anything else on. Now, in terms of properties, I don't think this one is super wash. It just says hand wash in lukewarm water with wool detergent and do not tumble dry. So I'm thinking this is non-super wash. Anyway, I have never used possum. This isn't as soft as I was expecting for a possum, but I think it's going to be very soft to use still, but it's not as soft as I was expecting for a possum because it's upcycled possum and it's only 30% possum. I have seen people use yarn that's almost 100% possum, or maybe it was 100%, and it's just fluff. It's beautiful, but it's just fluff. And something special about possum fur is possum actually, their hairs are like a little straw. They're hollow on the inside. Because of that, it's really insulating, and possum is therefore a very warm material. But yeah, I have never tried using it. All right. Well, that's it from me in terms of acquisitions as well, as far as I can think of. But I was going to continue showing you some of the pattern booklets that I got several months ago. And I've just brought 2 this time because I think last time I was possibly spending a bit too much time on that. So I'm going to show you, I'll just come a bit closer, I'm going to show you these 2. So this one is actually, so number 230, they call it OS sizes, which means out sizes. And so essentially this one here is for people that have a bust size larger than 36 inches. So this one here, they've got 2 different sizes. I think it starts, they've got one for 38 to 39 inches and one for like 40 to 42 inches. And all the patterns are around that kind of size. So as well as that front cover, there's this one here. Now I actually find that for me, my bust size is about 35 inches, 36 inches, depending on what bra I'm wearing. But I find that if I use a thicker yarn, I can knit a size 34 and it fits me okay, but not everyone is in that boat. And it's good to be able to have some patterns that fit people with larger bust sizes so that we have a bit more size inclusivity. And unfortunately, a lot of patterns that have larger sizes in these vintage booklets, they tend to be calling themselves matron knitwear. And I don't think you should have to feel matronly based on your bust size. But plenty of these are for younger women, which is perfect. Here we go. I notice a lot of these do have plenty of ribbing. I don't know if it was just the fashion in this particular booklet or if there's some reason to have a lot of ribbing, but this one doesn't have much ribbing. I think this one's a really gorgeous design actually. I really like this one. And that is, so that one's Anne. This one is for size 40 to 41 inch bust. And there's one more in back. This one has a really interesting pattern, kind of brick pattern. I've just got one more I want to show you. So there was a bit of a fashion in the 1940s and 50s where there was a lot of Angora things come out. And I don't know about anyone else, but I've never really felt the need to wear a whole lot of fluffy Angora, but it tends to hide a lot of the details. So if you look at this, it actually has some really nice ribbing. It's actually cables in the ribbing, but you can't really tell because of all the fluff. But there was a real fashion for Angora in the 40s and 50s. Probably after the war though, because Angora would have been expensive. This one's not Angora, it just fit. I don't know why they put this in a whole booklet full of other Angora things, but that one is an all over lace. But pretty much everything else in here is Angora. And they started doing some interesting things in this booklet with sleeve widths. I noticed that there's some, like this one has a really kind of, look how wide the top of the sleeve is where it hits the underarm. And they've got a couple of boleros. I think it is quite common to see Angora boleros. I really like this one actually. I would definitely knit that one. I like how it's got the edging around it that has the cables in it. Oops. And some accessories. Look, I might wear Angora if it was in a beret like this. But I don't know, the mittens just look like they're going to get dirty. And this woman just looks so happy to be wrapped in Angora, doesn't she? She just looks over the moon. Now this one, I just find this so classy. I love it. I just imagine that this would be beautiful in modern yarn and something that has a lot of drape. I'm guessing that Angora must have had quite a bit of drape. Now, I don't really know that I want to knit that much with Angora, but I think that would be beautiful in like linen or silk as well. And I've just got another accessory at the back. So, but yes, that one that I commented on just now, if I was going to knit from this book, it would definitely be that one. And that one is called Nita. You don't see my waist. So this one was called Nita. And it is 11 balls size, well, 11 balls of what, I don't know, size 33 to 34. All right, well, I think that was pretty much all I was going to show you this week. I've tried to keep it a little bit shorter than last week, I keep saying week, last month, because I know that I got really detailed last month. Excuse me, I'm not the most organised when it comes to this type of thing. If I can get my son and daughter out of the house for a bit with my husband, then I'm like, oh my goodness, now I can finally record a podcast and I don't have notes about what all my yarns are. I'm just hoping that you guys don't mind looking at the show notes at the end. But yeah, I would love to hear from you. Please comment so that I know that you're there. It'd be really nice to have a conversation. You can also reach me on Instagram. I'm not a huge social media user, so I might be a little slow in responding, but I am there. I am on Facebook as well, and but if you comment here on YouTube, then when I log into YouTube, which I do quite often because I love watching other knitting podcasts, then I'll see your comments. So please do. Please subscribe. If you subscribe, then you'll be able to see when another episode comes out, because I don't have any set schedule. It's just when I find the time. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what everyone else is working on too. So I'm not exactly sure how and where to find out what everyone else is working on, but I love seeing everyone else's projects. So I will do my best to try and follow you if I find out who you are. So do comment. I'll try and follow you on Instagram and see what you're knitting as well, so that I can comment there. Alrighty, well, have a wonderful day. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you, and I'll see you again next month. Bye.